So one of the things that we really need to know how to do in trig is to convert between degrees and radians. So I wanted to talk about how to do this and also what the work looks like so you'll really understand where it's coming from. Please understand that degrees and radians are two ways of describing the same angle. It can either be described in a degree measure or it can be described in a radian measure, but they are the same thing. So when we are, first of all, converting from degrees to radians, we multiply by pi over 180, and then we simplify from there. So I'm going to take this 45 degrees, and I'm going to multiply. I'm going to try. There we go. I'm going to multiply by pi over 180. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm not actually multiplying this out. I'm reducing the 45 and the 180 by what they have in common. Both of them can be divided by 45, which leaves me with a 1 and a 4. Now I simply multiply 1 times pi, which is pi, over my denominator, which is 4. This is pi over 4 radians. This is the radian measure of a 45-degree angle. The same thing with 125. We're going to multiply by pi over 180. We are going to reduce 125 and 180. And let's start by dividing them both by 5. And 25 and 36 have nothing else in common. So this is going to be 25 pi over 36, and that is in radians. Same with 315, multiply by pi over 180, and reduce 315 and 180. Both of those can be divided by 45, so I'm going to simplify by dividing by 45, which then gives me 7 pi over 4. That is the radian measure of a 315-degree angle. Now, if I want to convert from radians to degrees, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to multiply by the inverse. So this time I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi. When I do that, the very first thing that happens is these pi's cancel. And I'm left with 3/4 times 180. Now, if you have a handy calculator that does fractions for you, just multiply 3/4 times 180. If you don't, you can also multiply 3 times 180, which is 540, and then divide that by 4, and you get 135 degrees. So 135 is the degree measure of an angle that is 3 pi 4 radians. We're going to do the same thing with 7 pi over 6. We're going to multiply by 180 over pi. I'm going to immediately cancel out my pi's, and then I'm just going to multiply 7/6 times 180, and I get 210 degrees. Same thing on the last one. Let's multiply by 180 over pi. The pi's cancel, and I'm going to multiply 11/5 times 180, and I get 396 degrees. There we go. That's all it really takes to convert from radians to degrees or from degrees to radians. Multiply by pi over 180. You're just simplifying or reducing a fraction, and we all know how to do that. So I hope that makes sense to you. You're going to need this as you move into your trig units, so make sure that you really understand how to convert from degrees to radians and from radians to degrees.